You've heard of various emergencies during flights, but have you ever heard of a bird attack on an aeroplane? It really happened, and it was anything but ordinary. The birds weren't just flying around, they were causing serious problems, making it nearly impossible for the plane to land. Thanks to the quick action of the police and the rescue team, the plane was safely brought down. However, when the truth about why the birds were attacking came out, everyone was stunned. It turned out to be a shocking twist that no one saw coming. The story begins as Nolan, a skilled and friendly pilot, is at the helm of a commercial flight. He's known for his expertise and his warm rapport with passengers. Today, though, is far from ordinary. As the plane glides smoothly through the sky, it suddenly faces an unexpected and terrifying challenge. A swarm of aggressive birds attacks the aircraft, creating chaos and confusion. Despite Nolan's calm demeanor, the situation escalates quickly. The cabin crew reports growing panic among the passengers, who are now anxiously peering out the windows. The sight of birds pressing against the glass, darkening the cabin, only fuels their fear. Nolan's heart pounds as he grasps the seriousness of the situation. He tries to reassure everyone over the intercom, insisting that everything is under control, even as he struggles to keep his own nerves steady. Desperate for guidance, he contacts flight control for help. With the birds becoming more aggressive, Nolan worries that a collision with the engines could spell disaster. He must act quickly and decisively to ensure the safety of everyone on board. The number of birds kept increasing, their sheer numbers overwhelming. Their constant pecking and fluttering made it impossible for passengers to see through the windows. What was once a smooth, calm flight was now shrouded in an eerie darkness as the birds blocked out the sunlight. Nolan tried to climb to a higher altitude to avoid the birds, but it only worked a little. While going higher might help dodge some of the birds, it also put the plane in a more dangerous spot. Nolan's visibility was poor, and he didn't realize he was flying too close to tall buildings below. The urgency to prevent a crash became more intense by the minute. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Nolan decided to head back to the nearest airport. Flight control suggested a smaller, closer runway that would be less crowded and safer under the circumstances. Without wasting a moment, Nolan steered the plane toward this emergency landing site. However, as he made the turn, things got even worse. In the middle of the chaotic maneuver, the plane collided with several aggressive birds. This only angered the birds further, making them even more relentless. The constant pounding caused the plane's windows to start cracking under the relentless attack. Realizing that the situation was getting worse by the minute, Nolan pushed himself to the limit, focusing all his energy on landing the plane safely. The turbulence and the panicked passengers made everything harder. The plane was losing altitude quickly, and Nolan knew he had to act fast. Emergency services were on their way, but he had to make sure they could reach the runway in time. Meanwhile, the birds, drawn by the plane's distress, were swirling menacingly above, making the situation even more dangerous. With no time to lose, Nolan made a bold decision. He would land the plane in a nearby body of water. It was a risky move, but he thought it might be safer than trying to land on solid ground, where the plane could break apart on impact. As he guided the plane towards the water, he braced for a rough landing. Despite the challenges, he managed to touch down without breaking the plane apart. Now, Nolan's main focus was on ensuring the safety of everyone on board. The crew worked hard to calm the frightened passengers as the plane began to slowly sink into the water. The next challenge hit when the crew tried to open the emergency exits. The birds, still fiercely swarming around the plane, made this task incredibly tricky. With no other options available, Nolan had to make a tough call and open one of the exits. As the plane sank deeper into the water, passengers scrambled to evacuate. The chaos was intense. Some passengers, eager to be the first out, were attacked by the birds as they tried to leave. They had no choice but to jump into the water, some even finding themselves surrounded by the aggressive birds that had managed to get inside the cabin. Nolan made sure everyone had safely evacuated before he jumped into the water himself. Luckily, the Coast Guard arrived just in time to help. But as they got closer to the wreckage, the birds grew even more agitated and started attacking the rescue teams. Realizing they needed a plan, the Coast Guard used loudspeakers to create a lot of noise. The birds, startled by the racket, flew off into the nearby forest, allowing the Coast Guard to focus on rescuing the people and dealing with the wreckage. With the birds dispersed, the Coast Guard began the tricky task of towing the plane out of the water. They managed it successfully, and soon the plane was safely on solid ground. The police arrived shortly after to start their investigation. Nolan, who had been in charge of the plane, gave a detailed account of what had happened. He described how the birds became aggressive and how they had tried to handle the emergency. As the police questioned the passengers about their luggage, most were cooperative. However, one passenger stood out. His answers were evasive and inconsistent, raising red flags for the authorities. His suspicious behavior caught their attention, leading them to dig deeper into his background. Upon examining his passport, the police realized it was fake. They took his fingerprints and checked them against their database, discovering he had recently been released from prison. With his files classified, they were unsure about his real identity or his intentions. It became clear that they needed to look into his luggage to understand why the birds had attacked so violently. Meanwhile, the plane, now partially submerged, was being carefully inspected. The Coast Guard kept using loudspeakers to keep the birds away while the police worked on opening the luggage compartment. When they finally managed to get it open, they were stunned by what they found. The suspicious passenger had been smuggling exotic birds, which had sparked the aggressive behavior from the flock. Nolan, stunned by the discovery, was amazed to learn the truth. The birds' wild behavior had been caused by their distress over the smuggled exotic creatures. The smugglers' actions had put everyone on the plane in grave danger, and the authorities moved quickly to handle the situation. They arrested the smuggler and charged him with several serious crimes, making sure he would face tough consequences for his dangerous and illegal activities. The incident highlighted a surprising aspect of animal behavior: how animals will protect their own, even in desperate situations. Thanks to the bravery and quick thinking of the crew, emergency services, and the Coast Guard, everyone on the plane was safe. As things calmed down, Nolan and the passengers reflected on their terrifying experience. They realized just how far animals would go to protect each other and were grateful for the incredible efforts that had saved their lives. So, what are your thoughts about this heart-touching story? Share your opinions in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our new animal stories. Your support means the world to us.